Excuse me, I'm feeling very nauseous due to morning sickness. Would it be possible for me to leave early today?
What? Why do you need to leave early?
Well, as I mentioned, I'm experiencing morning sickness and feeling quite ill.
That's what I'm asking. Why would you need to leave early for something like that?
I'm Amy, and I work at a maternity clothing manufacturing company in Seattle. The company had a great reputation for making it easy for mothers to return to work after maternity leave. As someone who wanted to continue working after having children, I felt lucky to have found a job here. I live with my husband Miles, and while being in a dual-income household has its challenges, it is also rewarding and makes every day enjoyable. However, there was one person who constantly troubled me. During my break that day, while I was drinking orange juice, she approached me saying,
Didn't I tell you to get this done?
Oh, you said it could wait.
I never said that. This is exactly why married women are so useless.
Yes, she was Karen, my female boss who had transferred here last month. I really struggled with her constant complaints about everything. Though, I hadn't always disliked her. In fact, I used to look up to her. My first impression of Karen was that of a highly capable career woman. She wore expensive-looking black-rimmed glasses and perfectly tailored power suits. The professional look really suited her. I heard Karen was exceptionally talented since her school days, competing in national swimming championships and scoring in the top percentile on the SAT. Her credentials were far beyond those of an ordinary person like me. As someone who lived for their work, I admired how cool she looked while crushing it at her job. When Karen became my boss, I had hoped we could develop a good working relationship. However, I quickly realized how wrong I was.
Okay, you handle this task. And you, take care of this one. Well, you'll do this.
Karen immediately started delegating work and giving instructions to everyone.
What is this? Do it over. Even an entry-level employee could do better than this.
When work began, Karen was extremely harsh and frequently demanded revisions. At first, I thought she was just a perfectionist who wouldn't compromise on quality. However, I witnessed something the other day. While I was working as usual, I overheard Karen saying,
Thank you. If you do it this way, it'll be even better. Yes, that's perfect. This is excellent work. Keep it up.
When I looked up, Karen spoke kindly to the male employees. I witnessed her being overtly kind to them, acting like a completely different person than when she dealt with us female employees. She even casually touched them while speaking, and all the male employees were clearly smitten. Since I'd never heard or seen such a gentle tone and a patient teaching style, I wondered if Karen had a split personality. However, after witnessing similar scenes multiple times, I began to understand what kind of person she really was. Karen was a sweet, gentle boss to single male employees but harsh to female staff. She was particularly severe with married women, treating them terribly. Among all of them, she was especially harsh with me. I didn't know why, but she always found ways to criticize and belittle me. Recently, Karen reported her own mistake to the department head as if it were mine, getting me in trouble. When I confronted her about it, she yelled back.
Don't blame your mistakes on me.
Ever since, I have gone from disliking Karen to absolutely hating her. Our relationship had become like cats and dogs, to put it mildly. One day, while trying to maintain professionalism despite our issues, I suddenly felt very ill. I was 5 weeks pregnant and right at the time when morning sickness was typically starting. I had already informed Karen about my pregnancy, but when I went to ask,
Excuse me, I'm feeling very nauseous due to morning sickness. Would it be possible for me to leave early today?
Karen responded with,
What? Why do you need to leave early?
As I said, I'm feeling sick from morning sickness.
That's what I'm asking. Why would you need to leave early for something like that?
Of course, I understood that sudden early departures could inconvenience others. That's exactly why I informed Karen about my condition beforehand and tried to request leave as politely as possible. I was shocked by her complete refusal to acknowledge the situation. I tried explaining what morning sickness was and how it could affect my work and impact others. But Karen wouldn't listen. Instead, she said,
You're already behind on your work, so you can't leave early for something like this.
and dumped a huge pile of documents on my desk to prevent me from leaving. A coworker who witnessed this finally said,
I'll handle your work, so you should go home.
but Karen responded by giving her a massive pile of documents too, saying,
If you have so much free time, I'll give you work too. If you want to go home, finish all this work first. I won't accept any complaints.
Something snapped inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. What I did next happened quickly. I pushed past Karen trying to stop me, jumped into a nearby taxi, and headed to the hospital. Though it wasn't far, the ride felt like it took hours. When I arrived at the hospital, I rushed to the OB/GYN department. The doctor, seeing my condition, realized it was serious and examined me immediately. The diagnosis was severe morning sickness. In the end, my mom came to help, and I ended up hospitalized for 3 days on an 4 drip. The doctor later told me it could have been very serious if I'd waited any longer, which confirmed that my decision to leave work forcefully had been the right call. My husband, Miles, who had left work early, rushed to the hospital, saying,
Are you okay? I was so worried. If anything had happened to you,
and started crying. You see, he truly loved me. Miles had been this way since we first started dating. Once, when I slightly twisted my ankle, he immediately said,
Oh no, we need to get to the hospital right away. Let me carry you.
and carried me on his back all the way there. I loved him just as much. As I reminisced, he was still crying, so I gently patted his head, saying,
I'm okay, so don't cry like that.
while I was muttering about how easily Miles' company let him leave early compared to mine, he laughed and replied,
Well, our CEO is completely whipped by his wife. He once yelled at an employee trying to leave early for his wife, but when his wife found it out, she was so furious she didn't speak to him for a month. Since then, he made it a rule that leaving early for one's wife is automatically approved.
What a difference from my company's CEO. While I wondered if I'd chosen the wrong company since they had such great policies, I didn't regret it because I still found my work fulfilling. Since it was Friday, Miles decided to give up his weekend to take care of me. More than feeling guilty, I was moved by his kindness and felt truly grateful to have married him. However, that night in the hospital, my phone suddenly started ringing.
Oh my gosh.
My reaction upon seeing the screen was understandable, since the caller was Karen. Although I thought talking to her would only make me feel worse, ignoring her would cause more trouble, so I answered.
You've got some nerve to skip work like that. Do you want to get fired?
Those were Karen's first words. Any normal person would show at least some concern for someone's health. Well, expecting that from her would be pointless anyway.
I'm not skipping work. It's morning sickness. I'm supposed to be hospitalized for 3 days. I'll return to work as soon as possible.
Not as soon as possible. Just come back tomorrow. Morning sickness isn't that bad, right?
She mocked. Karen, who had never even been pregnant, couldn't possibly understand how difficult morning sickness could be. Even if I explained, she probably wouldn't try to understand. Exasperated, I repeated.
As I just said, I'm supposed to be hospitalized for 3 days. The doctor insisted I need complete bed rest.
However, Karen continued.
This is exactly why I hate married women. They always put family before work. Besides, leaving early for mere morning sickness. You're completely useless. A half-hearted person like you causes nothing but trouble.
Apparently, in Karen's mind, married women were just a nuisance.
Why would you even get pregnant? Nothing in this world should be more important than work. You should learn from me. This is why you'll never get promoted.
Pregnant women were an even bigger nuisance, it seemed.
Excuse me? What's wrong with being pregnant? There are plenty of women who work while pregnant. Besides, you wouldn't even exist if your mother hadn't been pregnant. How can you speak so negatively about pregnancy?
Shut up. Just be quiet and do what you are told to do by me, your boss.
This is ridiculous.
Oh, I know. Why don't you get an abortion? Then you won't be pregnant anymore and can focus more on work. If money's the issue, I'll pay for it.
What?
I was stunned by her outrageous suggestion. I knew Karen was harsh toward married women, but I never expected her to go this far. To Karen, pregnant women were nothing but an inconvenience. They were something to be eliminated even though it meant abortion. Was that really how she saw pregnant women? I never imagined such people existed in this world. This incredibly unreasonable female boss continued.
If you won't listen to me, quit your job. If you don't like that, I'll demote you to part-time.
In fact, Karen had forced many female employees to choose between quitting or becoming part-time workers, simply because she considered pregnant women useless.
It's the CEO's decision. If you have complaints, take them to him.
She'd say, and many female employees reluctantly accepted part-time status. However, for me, the most painful thing would be continuing to work with Karen, so I chose these words.
Fine. I quit.
Despite that the company makes maternity products, they treat pregnant women this badly. I'd rather quit such a place. When I told her I was quitting, Karen replied,
What? Not even going to put up a fight? Well, whatever. Nobody will miss you anyway. I can do your job with one hand tied behind my back. It must be simple enough for any idiot to handle.
Karen hung up after insulting me one last time. Though I was angry, I decided to calm down since this would be our last conversation. I didn't want to stress out the baby either. A week later, I was relaxing at my parents' house. While feeding a stray cat named Tiger, the house phone rang. Though annoyed at the interruption of my peaceful time, I answered. It was from my former company. I tensed up thinking it might be Karen, but it was Mr. Davis, the CEO.
Things have been chaotic since you left.
He said, practically begging for help. As I hesitated, Mr. Davis explained in detail what was happening at the company. Apparently, Karen had taken over my responsibilities. However, it had been nothing but problems since then. The project wasn't progressing at all, and they were having issues with clients.
Our client said they'll cancel all business unless you return. This could affect the company's survival. Please, won't you come back to work?
Mr. Davis seemed genuinely desperate, pleading with me to return. In fact, I had brought in that client myself. During negotiations, they had specifically requested to work only with me, saying that they trusted me while they didn't like Mr. Davis. However, I was reluctant to accept his request. After all, Mr. Davis was the one who had created the rule forcing pregnant women to either quit or accept part-time status.
I decline. After all, Mr. Davis, I had to quit because you created that ridiculous rule.
What rule?
I snapped in frustration.
The rule that pregnant women must either quit or accept part-time status. How can a maternity clothing company have such a rule?
I ended up shouting, but Mr. Davis exclaimed,
Wait a minute. I know nothing about such a rule.
That's when it hit me. Karen had created that rule on her own. To think she'd go so far as to blame the CEO. Then Mr. Davis said,
I don't know who told you that, but no such rule exists. If it did, I'd abolish it immediately. So please, won't you come back?
While moved by his sincerity, I knew returning would just mean more harassment from Karen. Just remembering everything she'd done made my anger bubble up again. I didn't even want to breathe the same air as her. Then, I had an idea that might let me avoid seeing her altogether.
I'll come back on one condition. Karen has to leave.
I threw out these words without much hope, but surprisingly he replied,
That's easy enough. Just give me a moment.
and hung up. An hour later.
Everything's arranged as you requested. Will you return now?
Mr. Davis had called an emergency executive meeting and quickly arranged Karen's transfer. She had done similar things before, forcing another female employee to quit. That's why she'd been transferred to our office. There had already been an agreement that she'd be transferred again if she repeated such behavior.
With you back, I won't worry about Karen being gone. You're worth multiple employees. For now, take your time recovering. We look forward to your return.
Mr. Davis said so before hanging up. The next day, when I returned to work, sure enough, Karen was gone. I later heard that she tried the same behavior at her new workplace, got reprimanded, and was forced to resign. Additionally, a wife of one of the male employees discovered Karen had been making advances toward her husband. That's why she was particularly kind to the male employees. She was just hunting for men. Come to think of it, some male employees seemed pretty down after hearing about her transfer. They were probably involved with her. I heard through the grapevine that Karen ended up marrying a farmer 20 years older than her and reluctantly helped with fieldwork at his family farm. She's even become pregnant herself, something she used to mock so much. I wonder how she'd handle it if her mother-in-law told her.
Don't skip field work just because of morning sickness.
Or,
If you won't listen to me, get a divorce.
well, I'll never see her again, so it's none of my business. As for me, I took maternity leave, and after returning to work, I now manage my own department. I work hard to repay the company that supported me so well during my pregnancy. During breaks, I can check on my child at the company daycare, and Mr. Davis continues to improve the work environment for married employees. I'm so glad to work for such a wonderful company. These thoughts fill me with satisfaction as I go about my work each day.